Buenas tardes.
Buenos tardes.
And ya que Dios en Chania.
Dios en Chioque.
Yopwe. My theme today is Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is the omni-myth of Mexico. And it's a very big subject, but what really initiates it was a few days ago we have the spring equinox. The equinox. And that is very, very, very major in all of this. So first I'm going to just introduce the things I'm displaying here. Here I collected this from Yucatan, this woven mat, and certainly a Mayan has painted on it this pyramid that is built by the Spanish name El Castillo. But the Mayans have a different name, the one giving movement and measure. And this is the main site of the spring equinox. Certainly this is the most absolutely attended, venerated structure in Mexico of 21,000 sacred sites. And I'll get back to that. And here, this is a mask of Quetzalcoatl, which is very interesting because what's featured here is the Quetzal bird. And it's a very, very good likeness of this little green bird with a little beak, and he has very, very, very long, beautiful green tail feathers, which was why the name Quetzal. It's like precious. And here's an old carving of Quetzalcoatl. This is a carving there. And then down here, this is a modern piece of Quetzalcoatl, the Quetzal feathers, and it combines both the serpent and the jaguar. And mentioning the jaguar, over there is the white jaguar. I should say that the Mayans, their whole reference and center is the Milky Way. And everything in the Milky Way is here. And everything that's here is in the Milky Way. And all of that. And the jaguar here is the body of the Milky Way. And the mouth of the jaguar is the birth. The jaguar is really Malam, grandmother. She is our birth, our mother. And I'll get back to that. And down here in front of the little Quetzal carving is a little tiny image of this. This is a votive. But in this area here, there's a number of other buildings. There's a miniature of this in this vicinity. And that's why I put this here. That they found there's a crypt underneath, and that's the burial of the jaguar priest. Sharam Balam. And all of that. I'm trying to say this myth of Quetzalcoatl first makes an appearance in the huge pyramids known by the name as Teotihuacan, meaning the place of the wonders coming out. And those pyramids are aligned with the Pleiades. And that's the main reference for Quetzalcoatl, is the constellation Pleiades, and especially when it's in conjunction with the sun. After a few hundred years, this was 2,000 years ago that was built, and it lasted a few hundred years, and then something happened, and that city collapsed or ended, and people from there came to Yucatan, and they came to this place where there were already ancient Mayan buildings. And they needed to adjust the latitude for the equinox because it's a little bit different from where the pyramids were. And they built this, and they built it over a previous Mayan pyramid. And inside of that Mayan pyramid, there has been recently found this red jaguar carved out of stone, about like that, in the same style as that white one down there. And on the back of that was a turquoise disc, meaning the sun, meaning that the red jaguar is the throne for the sun, basically what that is. At the spring equinox, what happens is that thousands of people are there to receive the cosmic energy of the arrival of Quetzalcoatl. In Mayan, it's actually called Kukulkan, meaning the place of the serpent. And there in the afternoon, the serpent comes slithering out of the temple and down, and over here is the cenote. Chichen Itza really means the people, the Itza at the rim of the cenote, this big, huge well like that. So that's what's happening here. This is a precursor to later, 60 days later, in May 20th. Up here is the snake tail, which is figured as this tail of a rattlesnake. It's called Tzab. Tzab is the Mayan name for the Pleiades. And that means that on May 20th, that the sun is going to be zenith, and that night the constellation is going to be zenith. So that's what it points to. The rattlesnake in Yucatan has just below its rattles the face of Ahu, the sun. So that makes it a very apt symbol. So we would see the serpent slithering down the steps, and we would imagine that the tail of the serpent is rising up, pointing up there to the zenith. So this is a kind of a zenith cosmology. The Mayans, in the meantime, with their orientation to the Milky Way, see the Milky Way also as a tree. The Mayan who painted this is the ceiba tree, which is the holy or sacred tree or anything like that. It's identified by the kebabs, the little things hanging off of it, so you know that's what it is. And it's also the root form for truth or true or anything like that. And it's also figured in the Milky Way, in a certain part of it. So all of that is happening with all of this. Again, that the Milky Way is our birthing mother or cosmic mother. In this case, the white jaguar is her body, and the mouth of the jaguar is the birthing, where that comes out. The Nahuatl people, which are also the Aztecs, I think the Spanish gave them the name of Aztec, They're really the Mexica. The Mexica are the offspring, the progeny of Mexica, the goddess that appeared out of the Agave, Magui. So in the story of Quetzalcoatl here as the hero, I mean, he's everything. He's a man who was born, and he went through trials and tribulations and all of that. All the things that happened to him makes him quite a representative or an avatar between a human and the divinities. And through this long epic of his life, this is the last part of it, and that's what I'm reading. This is from the Nahuatl. When he reached the holy sea and the shore of the luminous ocean, he stayed his steps and he wept. He gathered his garments together and dressed himself in his robes of quetzal feathers and his turquoise mask. After he had dressed, he then set his own body on fire and was consumed in the flames. Where Quetzalcoatl had burned is called Place of the Stake. And it is well known that when he had been so consumed, his ashes rose into the sky. There, with all the fine feathered birds that appeared to watch the serpent's swirl of ashes go up aloft, the red feathered guya, maya, the blue jay, the shining white bird, parrots and parakeets with their yellow feathers, and all other richly plumed birds. When these ashes ceased to burn, Quetzalcoatl's heart rose up. They say his heart entered into heaven, where it became the morning star appearing at dawn. And they say further that it wasn't seen for 4 days after his ascension, when he had gone to sojourn in the Death Kingdom. And in those 4 days he gathered arrows, and 8 days later he appeared again as the great star. And it is well known that since that time he is always upon his throne. Thus ends the epic of Quetzalcoatl, who made the sacrifice and rose to become Venus, who has won immortality through mortal struggle and against the odds of mortal weakness. Uh-oh. Thank you.